Welcome everyone to a Reading with the Crew special presentation. My name is Dr. Silkman and I'm from the Foul Play team. Today's presentation is entitled The Janda Burn Barrels. I hope that you enjoy the presentation. All the opinions expressed in this presentation are my own. It is important to start this presentation with Julie Kramer and her HRD canine, Brutus. I quote, "That is a picture of my dog Brutus and I. This was our team picture taken this past year. Brutus is a 10-year-old Belgian Malinois, which is one of the types of Belgian Shepherds, and he is certified in human remains detection, both land and water. Brutus was the most experienced canine at GLSR. It is very important to understand the Belgian Malinois breed. They've often been referred to as the elite special forces of the canine world. They've also been referred to as the Maligator. The Belgian Malinois is used in human remains detection work, and here is the reason why. Their agility. A Malinois can scale a 6-foot wall or walk across a precariously balanced pile of rubble with more poise than almost any other breed. High drive. In HRD work, drive is the willingness to keep searching for hours even when they aren't finding anything. A Malinois' obsessive nature means they won't quit until they find the source or the handler calls it. Search speed. They cover ground faster than a German Shepherd. Because they are lighter, they have a higher power to weight ratio, allowing them to work longer. Precision. They are highly capable of scent discrimination, ignoring animal carcasses or old food to find specific human volatile organic compounds. Single-purpose focus. Once a Malinois is locked in on search mode, they may ignore everything else, including their own physical safety. Did you have a chance to work Brutus in the inside the attached or the detached garage? That's about square in the middle of the portion of Exhibit 86 that we have on the screen? No, we did not. We only worked as far as the tank where he was barking, and then he skirted around to another area, meaning he ran up along to the east here, to the left. Yes, he ended up proceeding behind the next building. Where did he go? There was an area of 4 burn barrels which he barked at. Oh, this is what you now know to be the Janda trailer? I don't know whose trailer that is, but it was a blue trailer? Yes. Just east of Mr. Avery's garage? Yes. And there were 4 burn barrels in the back? Yes. He alerted on those? Yes. The area of the 4 burn barrels, Brutus actually alerted on 2 of the barrels? Attorney Kratz. Objection. Beyond the scope of redirect. Attorney Strang. It is. I'm just getting a chance to look at the report. It is beyond the scope of redirect. The court. All right. How many questions are you looking to ask? Attorney Strang. I think 2. Attorney Kratz. That's fine, Judge. He can. The court. Very well. Attorney Strang. I've asked one already. He alerted on 2 of the barrels. Yes. And the alerts go with extreme animation and excitement? Yes. Mr. Kratz did not ask Kramer about any alerts by Brutus at the Janda burn barrels. Strang did not ask Kramer about the significance of the alerts at the Janda burn barrels by Brutus. Saturday, late afternoon, November the 5th, 2005, and this is from Julie Kramer's report. I quote, "Moving outside, we checked an area with 4 burn barrels. Canine Brutus alerted on 2 of the barrels with extreme animation and excitement. Alert number 5. What was the significance of Brutus Alert 5, in which he alerted with extreme animation and excitement? The actual alert by Brutus was witnessed by John Erdl from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. Question: what happened at that particular location? I watched the cadaver dog work around the barrels, and it had interest in the 2 of them to the south. Then there were 2 more next to it. I advised, with the rain, you probably want to cover those with a tarp, prevent whatever is inside from getting soaked. Brutus was initially near Stephen Avery's propane tank, and you can see that on the left-hand side with the red arrow. Brutus went past Stephen Avery's burn pit and went to the Janda burn barrels, where he gave his alert number 5. Several days later, on November the 8th, human burnt bones and muscle tissue were found in Stephen Avery's burn pit. Brutus had bypassed the burn pit and did not give an alert. There has been commentary that potentially Brutus may have been intimidated by the presence of Stephen Avery's dog Bear. Right next to the burn barrels, the Janda burn barrels, were the 2 dog kennels and the 2 dogs of Barb Janda, and it seemed that even though the 2 dogs were present near the burn barrels, it didn't seem to deter Brutus at all. Brutus is a Belgian Malinois. They are very much laser focused at achieving their aim, and since Brutus detects human decomposition, he must have smelt or detected the presence of human decomposition all the way from the propane tank, and that's what led him to the Janda burn barrels. This is another image showing the path that Brutus took from the propane tank to the Janda burn barrels. This is an actual photograph that shows an overhead view of where Brutus initially was with Julie Kramer at Stephen Avery's propane tank, and that Brutus made his way to the Janda burn barrels. How did he bypass Stephen Avery's burn pit? Now we start at Sunday, November the 6th, 2005. We're going to track what happened to each of the Janda burn barrels. The 4 burning barrels, covered by blue tarps, were collected at the Janda residence at 9:47 a.m. and I've given the full reference where you can read the report in CASO. The 4 Janda burn barrels were loaded onto a covered trailer and custody was transferred over to Austin House at 10:11 a.m. The trailer was driven to the Calumet County Sheriff's Department by Osterhaus and Takes, arriving at approximately 12:24 p.m. The trailer was parked behind the Calumet County Sheriff's Department at approximately 12:45 p.m. and the evidence was signed over to Hawkins. Item and property tag numbers were given to all of the burn barrels, and note, all were 55-gallon drums. Janda burn barrel number 1 had evidence tag 642. Janda burn barrel number 2 had evidence tag 643. Janda burn barrel number 3 had evidence tag 644. And Janda burn barrel number 4 had evidence tag 645. Brutus had alerted at 2 of these burn barrels. Now please note, these are the processed Janda burn barrels. Here we can see a photograph of Janda burn barrel number 1, number 2, and number 3. And I want you to note the presence of the tarps which are in the burn barrels. This is Janda burn barrel number 4, and it was unique because it actually had two property tag numbers, tag number 645 and tag number 7922. How were the Janda burn barrels processed for evidence? We're now looking at Monday, November the 7th, 2005. This was the first processing of the Janda burn barrels. The Wisconsin State Crime Lab, Ertl, Kate, and Zhang had started processing the 4 burn barrels for evidence. Burn barrel number 4 was processed and was placed back onto the trailer. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang were called back to the Avery salvage yard and had stopped the processing of burn barrel number 2. Matsuzak picked up the trailer that contained burn barrel number 4 and had returned it back to the Avery salvage yard. Kurcharsky was present when the Wisconsin State Crime Lab were processing the burn barrels from 7:45 p.m. to 9:13 p.m. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang were called out to the clandestine burial site at the Cuss Road cul-de-sac in the afternoon. Tuesday, November the 8th, 2005. This was the second processing of the Janda burn barrels. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang arrived back at the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Matsuzak returns burn barrel number 4 under Kratz's instruction from the Avery salvage yard. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang continue processing the burn barrels. Once Ertl, Kate, and Zhang had finished with the 4 burn barrels, custody was signed over to Hawkins. The burn barrels were placed into the long-term secure area of the back garage. Let us summarize now what we know so far. Brutus alerts at 2 of the 4 Janda burn barrels. This occurred on November the 5th. The Janda burn barrels are picked up and stored at the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, November the 6th. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang start processing 4 burn barrels. This was November the 7th. Burn barrel number 4 has been fully processed and was sent back to the Avery salvage yard, November the 7th. Ertl, Kate, and Zhang continue processing the Janda burn barrels on November the 8th. Burn barrel number 4 was returned back from the Avery salvage yard, and this was on November the 8th. The Janda burn barrels are placed in a long-term secure area at the Calumet County Sheriff's Department on November the 8th. Tuesday, November the 8th, 2005. REMA collected from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab personnel at the command post the following items. Tag number 8315, which was the contents of Janda burn barrel number 1. Tag 8314, which was the contents of Janda burn barrel number 2. Tag 8317, which was the contents of Janda burn barrel number 3. And tag 8319, which was the contents of Janda burn barrel number 4. On Wednesday, November the 9th, 2005, Hawkins was asked to get the above items ready to be sent with DCI agent Joy to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab in Madison. There was also tag 8316, which was the contents from the cell phone barrel. And here we can see the item numbers that were associated with the burn barrel contents, and they were item AE, AF, AG, and AH. Here are the photographs of the boxes. Here we have item AE, which represents tag number 8315, which are the contents of burn barrel number 1, which have evidence tag 642. On the box, there are various dates. Box number 2, which was item AF. Box number 3, which was item AG. Box number 4, which was item AH. This was from a report by John Erdl, and I quote, "The contents of 5 burn barrels reportedly recovered from the scene were examined and sifted at the Calumet County Sheriff's Office. As a result, 5 items containing debris were recovered. Subsequently, these were submitted to the laboratory as items AE, AF, AG, AH, and AL. And item AL is one sealed box containing items described as contents of cell phone barrel, tag number 8316. And this was Stephen Avery's burn barrel that was discovered on November the 7th, 2005 by Deputy Siders. Question. Very well. Directing your attention then to Monday, November the 7th, 2005, did you again participate in processing of the salvage yard? Arrangements on Sunday evening were that we would meet up with a Jeremy Hawkins here in Chilton at the Calumet County Sheriff's Service Garage. The 4 burnt barrels had been transported to the service garage and we were to examine those. And did you start examining the burn barrels? Yes. Approximately 8 a.m. we met with Jeremy Hawkins. He led us into the garage, got us into the trailer where the burn barrels were, got them out into the garage, set up our sifting equipment, and bit by bit went through the contents of the barrels, sifting, looking for any kind of bones, teeth, hair, any metallic type items. Did you find any of that evidence? There was. In each barrel examined, we collected a box full of that sort of material. According to what John Erdl had told Fallon, the boxes that you can see on the right-hand side would represent and contain material that the Wisconsin State Crime Lab had sifted from each of the Janda burn barrels. Buting then asked a series of questions to Erdl. I quote, "All right, I guess the point here is that various items of suspected bone were brought to you to be sifted. I mean, various areas of dirt or whatever were brought to you to be sifted, and then suspected bone fragments were found, right?" "Correct. But to your knowledge, neither you nor anyone else would specifically identify where in this area that particular piece of bone came from?" "No. Everything that was collected in this area was placed together in a box. This area being that 4 by 5 foot ash pile was placed together in a box, just as we had done with the burn barrels." And on the right hand side, you can see the box that contains sifted material from the burn pit. That material was placed inside this box. Here you can see the contents of that box, and on the red tag is the following information. Evidence tag number 8318. Contents sifted from burn pit near Steve's residence and garage. This is exactly what we would expect to find in those 4 boxes from the Janda burn barrels. As Erdl had pointed out, he stated that they had sifted the contents of each of the Janda burn barrels, and that material that had been sifted had been placed inside one of those boxes. So let us summarize what we have so far. Erdl, Cates, and Zhang had processed all 4 Janda burn barrels and had produced 4 boxes of evidence that contained the sifted material from each of the burn barrels, and you can clearly see from the evidence tag the following information: tag number 8314, contents of burn barrel number 2. However, things were just about to get very, very interesting. On 11/11/05, DCI agents Mike Rint and Rod Pevito came to the Calumet County Sheriff's Department to go through 5 barrels. They went through barrel marked number 4 and retrieved a red cut-off shirt, which was handed to me to be placed into evidence. In a burn barrel without any markings, Mike Rint and Rod Pevito retrieved an unknown burnt cloth, which I placed into evidence. Mike Rint and Rod Pevito also recovered a bone, which was not suspected to be of human origin. I placed the bone into evidence. After DCI agent Rint and Pevito were finished with the barrel with no markings and barrel mark number 4, they went back to the crime scene. Ertl, Cates and Zhang had already processed Janda burn barrel number 4 on Monday, November the 7th, 2005. What was the unknown burn barrel with no markings? Here is the red cut-off shirt with evidence tag 8703, which allegedly was found in burn barrel number 4. Here was the unknown burnt cloth with evidence tag 8702 from an unknown burn barrel. Here is a bone that was not suspected to be human in origin with evidence tag 8701, and this also was from an unknown burn barrel. Now we look at the events of Saturday, November the 12th, 2005. This was the 3rd Janda burn barrel processing. On Saturday, 11/12/05, I, Deputy Rick Reamer, in the company of myself, assisted Special Agent Rod Pevito and Special Agent Ron Eben in processing items 642, 643, 644, and 645. It should be noted that in processing item 643, a 55-gallon burn barrel with miscellaneous items inside, they did find various bone fragments. Also turned over to me was property tag 7958, burnt material with the words Deer Camp Burn Barrel printed on the container, which was found at the deer camp near the location. Property tag 7960, burnt bone from the deer camp area, was turned over to me at 10:17 hours. Property tag 7963, burnt material from deer camp, was turned over to me at 10:27 hours. At 10:38 hours, the first piece of bone was located in the burn pile from item 643, burn barrel number 2. The collection of burnt bone pieces and possible tissue pieces was turned over to me. This is the DCI report dated 11/12/2005 with Rodney Pevito and Ronald Eben, and you can see the title Examination of Burn Barrels and Burnt Bone Material from Burn Barrel 643. And I quote, on Saturday, November the 12th, 2005, Rodney J. Pevito, accompanied by Ronald Emmett, conducted an examination of the contents of 4 55-gallon barrels recovered from the Stephen Avery property site. The barrels were identified with Calumet County property tags 642, 643, 644, and 645. An examination of the barrels 642, 644, and 645 failed to reveal any items of suspected evidentiary value. An examination of the barrel identified as 643 showed that its contents had numerous quantities of burnt bone material. This bone material was collected in the presence of Deputy Rick Reamer of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department and preserved by him under Calumet County Property Tag 7964 for its potential evidentiary value. So now we have Janda burn barrel number 2 with evidence tag 643 containing burnt bone material and given evidence tag 7964. So let's sum this up. This is Saturday, November the 12th, 2005, with a burn barrel examination by Pevito and Eben. Janda burn barrel number 1, 3, and 4, they found no material of evidentiary value. On re-examination of Janda burn barrel number 2, burnt bone material had been found. This was the third processing of the Janda burn barrels. What actually happened to item AF with the tag number 8314, which was the contents of burn barrel number 2? That was obtained on Tuesday, November the 8th, 2005. Why are Pevito and Eben finding burnt bone material in Janda burn barrel number 2 if Earl, Cates and Zhang had already processed it? So here we have burn barrel number 2. This was sifted by members of the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, Earl, Cates and Zhang. And we have item AF, which is the contents of barrel number 2. Now, Pevito and Eben had re-examined Janda burn barrel number 2 and have come up with evidence tag 7964 on 11/12/2005. This is a close-up shot of the tub containing the bone fragments from burn barrel number 2, and this is a photograph showing the tub containing the burnt bone fragments on its side. How did Earl, Cates and Zhang miss all these bone fragments considering they had already sifted Janda burn barrel number 2? Another event occurred on the same exact day. On 11/12/2005, both Rodney Pevito and Ronald Eben examined the deer camp burn barrel. I quote, "On Saturday, November 12, 2005, Rodney J. Pevito, accompanied by Ronald Eben, conducted an examination of the deer hunting camp from Redont Sand and Gravel Pit, located adjacent to the Stephen Avery property. Just outside of a burn barrel at the deer hunting campsite was discovered a small fragment of unburned bone. The contents of the burn barrel at the deer camp were examined, and no items of suspected evidentiary value were noted. The contents of the burn barrel were packaged and saved. The evidentiary items were turned over to Deputy Rick Reamer of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department for preservation." What is interesting, if we have a look at Bloodhound Loof, track 4, from Fauska's report, it states, Canine Loof went to a burning barrel and a garage with some interest, and that was at the deer camp. Strang had questioned Pevito during the Stephen Avery trial. Question: You had no opportunity to see the burn barrels behind the Janda house before they were disturbed? Correct. But you did testify on direct examination that you saw suspected bone fragments from a burn barrel behind the Janda house later. I believe my testimony is that if you are referring to the examination of Saturday, the 12th, that we examined some barrels whether that barrel was from behind the Janda house or not, but one of the barrels we looked at, there was some bone material in it. You looked at a total of 4 barrels, or was it more? 4 sounds correct. What you are sure of is that only one of them had bone material in it. Yes. That bone material, and it's Saturday, November 12th, and we're in the Calumet County Sheriff's Office now, correct? Yes. Examining material there? Yes. So the barrels have been transported somehow to the Calumet County Sheriff's Office, obviously. Correct. There has been a sifting process by myself or previous, or if you know. I don't know what happened to them. All I can tell you is that when I got there, the barrels were there. We removed the contents and went through them. Did you actually remove the contents from the barrel? Yes. Okay. Did you sift at that point? Much of that debris was too big to sift. Our screens are 1/4 inch in size or so. What is interesting here is that Pevito's recollections are very, very different to the recollections of Ertl, in which he had stated that they had sifted the contents of Janda burn barrel number 2. Okay. I don't think any of it could have been sifted. The debris was so massive. Would it have been on tarps on the floor? Correct. We would lay a clean tarp down and then go through it. And then I think we would wrap all the material up from the barrel in that clean tarp and then place that into the barrel as a way of making sure that we were recovering everything we looked at. Okay, in spreading the material from the barrel onto the tarps, you did this with caution? Yes. I mean, to avoid further breakage of whatever might be in there? Yes. Some of the stuff, at least initially, I believe the barrel was upright and we were just hand removing it, so to speak. Okay, again, yeah. Again, for good cautious handling, correct. Spread it out on the tarps carefully? Yes. This is Janda burn barrel number 2. This burn barrel has been processed for the 3rd time, and you can see on the burn barrel itself, marked in chalk, number 2. You can see the date 11/12/05 and the initials RJP, which likely stood for Rodney J. Pevito. Again, note the presence of the tarp within the burn barrel. And the things that you identified as possible bone fragments from one of the barrels, you thought in general looked larger than, in general, the suspected bone fragments from the burn pit behind the garage had looked. Correct. Now, obviously, there's some variation in size in bone fragments from both places. Correct. And these aren't uniformly sized pieces by any means. No, you're correct on that. By taking it on the whole, it looked to you like most of the fragments from the barrel were a bit larger than most of the fragments from the burn area. Well, from the barrel, as you are describing it, there were only a few bones recovered. I don't know the exact number. It might have been 4 or 3, something like that. It was certainly single-digit numbers. From the burn pit, there were, tens of hundreds found of small fragmentation, and probably by the end, in the high hundreds of small fragments. What Pevito had just stated did not make any real sense, because if you have a look on the right-hand side at the bone fragment tub from burn barrel number 2, it appears that there are definitely more than just 4 bone fragments within it. On 01/17/06, I, Deputy Jeremy Hawkins, along with Nick Mersberger of Pethens Towing, transported the light blue in-colour golf cart bearing property tag number 8666 to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. The light blue in-colour golf cart was signed over and released to Dolores Larson. I was also asked by Investigator Uyghur to release all items that contain possible bone material to Dr. Leslie Eisenberg. The following items were taken to the Dane County Coroner's Office and released to Deputy Coroner Barry Erdman. And you can see here, property tag number 7964, burnt bone pieces, barrel number 2. On 12/11/06, I, Deputy Jeremy Hawkins, drove to the Dane County Coroner's Office to obtain all the pieces of bone that were given to Dr. Leslie Eisenberg. Property tag 8314, contents of burn barrel number 2, 8315, contents of barrel number 1, 8317, contents of barrel number 3, property tag number 8319, contents of barrel number 4, and tag 7964, burnt bone pieces from barrel number 2. The bones were photographed by Dr. Leslie Eisenberg, and we can see this particular bone fragment here, and it's got evidence tag 7964. What you can see on this bone fragment is that it has been burnt, it has hesitation cut marks within the bone, and it also has a saw kerf mark. Here is the same view of evidence tag 7964, and it shows you a close-up of a cut mark within the bone fragment. However, that's not the end of evidence tag 7964. We've got this Ziploc bag containing what it states on the bag itself, human bone. What we note on the box are Q numbers. Q numbers are assigned by the FBI, and you can see evidence tag 7964 Q15 to Q38, which is 24 separate human bone fragments, which is definitely much higher than what Pevito stated in court. This is a close-up of the Ziploc bag, and there's some important information that has been written on the bag. We have the date 12/18/06. We have this specific number 061227012 PM PV. We have Q15 to Q38. You can see evidence tag 7964, and on the plastic bag is written human bone. On 12/18/06, I, Deputy Jeremy Hawkins, released the following property tag numbers to Gerald Mullen of the FBI for transport to Milwaukee. The items were then transferred to FBI headquarters in Virginia for possible further testing. The property tag numbers are as follows. Property tag number 8675, bones located in debris pile, and these, if you remember, were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And property tag 7964, burnt bone pieces from barrel number 2. Both items were signed over and released to Gerald Mullen of the FBI. On 01/31/07, I, Deputy Hawkins, received from FBI agent Gerald Mullen the following items: 2 plastic containers containing pieces of bone from property tag 9597, a plastic bag containing bone pieces from property tag 8675, and a cardboard box, a plastic container, and a plastic container in an envelope, all containing pieces of bone from property tag 7964. Custody of all packages was signed over to myself, by FBI agent Gerald Mullen. And here is the FBI report, and if you note, it has the exact same number, 06 1227 012 PM PV. If we look at the FBI report, it states Q15 to Q45, 31 bone fragments. And if we look at the remarks, I quote, "Due to the condition of the submitted Q numbers, which were the bone fragments, no mitochondrial DNA examinations were conducted. On the original box that was sent to the FBI, we had the following Q numbers, Q15 to Q38. In the FBI report, it states Q15 to Q45. The extra 7 bone fragments were from evidence tag 8675, and these were the pelvic bone fragments from the Manitowoc County gravel pit." This photograph shows laboratory number 06 1227 012 PM PV, and we can see the FBI numbers, which represented 7 bone fragments. And on the Ziploc bag, we can see evidence tag 8675. Dr. Leslie Eisenberg was not prepared to call these bone fragments human, but suspect possible human. The bone fragment from tag 7964 was found in barrel number 2, according to the description on the evidence tag. Also collected in tag 7964 was unmodified, burned and calcined human bone from the scapula, spine, long bone shaft fragments, and a possible metacarpal fragment. Non-human and unidentifiable bone fragments were also recovered. Dr. Eisenberg was able to locate the locations of these bone fragments from evidence tag 7964, and you can see them displayed on the skeleton on the right hand side. What was clear here was that the bone fragments were not from one specific limb, like an arm or a leg, but were scattered throughout the body. Due to the cut marks in the bones, and you can see that on the left hand side, there was evidence of dismemberment. Here is the contents of barrel number 1. I do not believe whether these 2 bladed instruments that were found were tested for trace evidence. Here is the contents of Janda burn barrel number 2 that was present in the box. And we have what appears to be a bone fragment found on the top of the box near the label. So let us sum up the contents of Janda burn barrel number 2 with evidence tag 8314, which was the box. Why is there a bone fragment on the evidence label? Is this a human bone fragment? Is it animal in origin? If the Wisconsin State Crime Lab had sifted this bone fragment from the burn barrel, how did they miss the other 24 bone fragments? How did the Wisconsin State Crime Lab fail to sift this bone fragment that's got evidence tag 7964 from the burn barrel? It wasn't making any sense whatsoever. In regards to box 3, I could not find any photos showing the contents of the box. For box 4, we have another example of what appears to be a bone fragment found on the top of the box. Was this particular bone fragment human in origin? And here are some additional items that were found in Janda burn barrel number 4. And you can see, in addition, there were all these bone fragments that were also found in Janda burn barrel number 4. And what is interesting, again, in front of the box, we have a bone fragment. We do not know whether that bone fragment is human in origin. Remember, that all these bones were sifted by the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory, which doesn't make any sense for the results that they had obtained for Janda burn barrel number 2. In addition, there were several boxes containing what appeared to be bone fragments. Unfortunately, there was no label present on the photo, so we do not know what their origin was. This is one example, a second example, and a third example. We do not know where they had come from. If we have a look at this CASO report, dated 09/2011, ledger number 05-09, property tag 7964, burnt bone pieces from barrel number 2. The human bones were removed from the rest of the contents and photographed. This CASO report outlines the bone fragments, the human bone fragments that were given back to the Hallbach family in 2011, and clearly bones from evidence tag 7964 were given back to the Hallbach family. So let us summarize the presentation. Why were the 4 Janda burn barrels re-examined by Pevito and Eben on November the 12th, 2005? Who had requested them to re-examine the Janda burn barrels? Why were an additional 24 bone fragments, and there's a possibility of even more, found in Janda burn barrel number 2 by Pevito and Eben when the Wisconsin State Crime Lab likely had found only 1? Brutus had alerted at 2 of the Janda burn barrels. Were they burn barrel number 2 and number 4? The documentation of the processing of the Janda burn barrels was very confusing and, in my opinion, poorly done. All the burn barrels, the tarps, and the plastic buckets were all kept together, increasing the chance of errors and mistakes. Buting and Strang did not go into detailed cross-examination of those that had handled the 4 Janda burn barrels. No one was able to explain the difference that was obtained for Janda burn barrel number 2. How did the burnt, cut, human bone fragments end up in Janda burn barrel number 2 in the first place? Some of the pieces of bone found at the burn pit were smaller than your pinky nail. Some of the bones had likely been reduced entirely to ash. Tiny rivets were found, a zipper, tooth fragments. The 4 bone pieces in the burn barrel were, in general, larger pieces than those found in the burn pit. I believe the most likely explanation is that Avery moved 4 of the larger pieces of bone that were not breaking down as well to the barrel, perhaps to burn and break them down further. Lest you think there was any great danger in these pieces being recognized in one of the barrels, they were still small, maybe 1.5 inches, and nothing that would have looked out of the ordinary in a barrel that had already contained animal bones, a barrel used to burn garbage and belonging to a family of avid hunters. Was Mr. Kratz aware of the 24 bone fragments from evidence tag 7964 that were sent to the FBI? Where did Mr. Kratz get the number of 4 bone pieces? We have to be thankful for the incredible efforts of Julie Kramer's Belgian Malinois, Brutus. Unfortunately, we are left with more questions than answers. My name is Dr. Silkman, and I am from the Foul Play team. I hope that you have enjoyed today's presentation. Please let me know in the comment section what you feel about Janda burn barrel number 2.
If the body didn't get burned in the burn pit, what's another possibility?
The best thing, of course, is to put it in some sort of enclosure preferably metal, that will reflect the radiant heat back into the location of the body, and that assures that there's enough radiant heat continuing to play on the surface of the body to keep the fuel supply coming. There have been a number of cases across the U.S. where bodies have been disposed of in a front yard burn barrel. I was actually kind of surprised to see how efficient the process was, and it turns out that from a thermal energy standpoint, they're successful for exactly the same reason as a commercial crematorium.